We're going to cover some labeling basics, and then we're going to talk about some changes that occurred in both labeling, some changes that occurred in packaging, and then some differences that have some changes in the pre-approval process, more updatey type stuff that I wanted to share with you guys. We just talked a little bit about the bottle bill. What does this mean for you? If you have a qualifying product, you got to have the Oregon 10 cents starting April 1st. So right now I'm not going to go back and go through and make sure everyone has the Oregon 5 cents because you're just going to have to change it to 10 cents. So we're really going to look for the 10 cents starting April 1st. This is mostly water, carbonated soft drinks, or it is water and carbonated soft drinks. So if you haven't got your label approved yet and you want to sell this product, you got to make sure that you put this on your label. Even if you're submitting it tomorrow, go ahead and put it on your label to prepare, because if you go out and print 10,000 copies of your label and you get ready to do it, you're not going to sell them before August or April 1st, and you're going to have to redo your stuff. It's okay if it's a sticker. You can just have a sticker that goes on your label. That's fine. If you have already submitted your label and it's been approved, that's okay too. Contact me. What we'll do is we'll just have you update your label. Maybe you want to just do a quick sticker. Maybe you want to change your label. Either way, I'll just have you update your application. So you just contact me. We'll open up your application, look at it, and have you submit the new information, and it'll be really quick and easy. So just go ahead and email the marijuana.packaging@oregon.gov email. Really, really important. You do not need to reapply. Do not send me another application that has only the slight change of adding Oregon 10 cents on there. Please don't do that. That will be a waste of your money. I guess if you really, really wanted to give $100 to the OLCC, we'll accept your donation, but you do not have to do that. Starting here pretty soon, I'm not going to approve the label unless it has the Oregon 10 cents on it for the particular types of products that it covers. So just be aware of that. And if you're going to sell coffee or tea or something else that's going to be included in the expansion, you might want to start thinking about that now and preparing to have that for January of next year. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to wait until, I don't know, December 20th, 21st to think about that and put that on their label. Really should start thinking about it now, preparing for it now, so that when it comes up, you're ready to have it on your label and your stuff's already approved, it's already on there. You can do it ahead of time because it's going to really hurt you if you have to go back and on December 31st, you're relabeling all of your stuff. All right, so pretty simple stuff. But there's still a lot of confusion. I get a lot of questions and a lot of confusion when people submit applications about what goes on the label application and what goes on the package application. So when we're looking at the label, I'm talking about anything that is written, printed, or affixed to the package. So this is any kind of logo, any kind of logo. This is a picture. If the picture is directly printed on the package, it is still considered part of the label. So we're talking about anything that's printed on the package. And this also includes graphics. If you just have some really pretty, lines and dots and stripes, that is a graphic and is still considered part of the label. The package is just the physical structure. The plain Jane box, the bottle, the pop top, that is the package. So one example is like this can, right? So this can, the plain aluminum can on the bottom of this, that would be the package. Everything that's printed on the outside of this, that's the label. So when you're submitting it, just keep that in mind. So generic, and the reason why I'm really talking about this is I think a lot more people think that they have generic labels, but they don't. So a generic label, it's a label that has only the text required by the rule and the universal symbol. One thing, you can use a pictogram for the activation time. So if you have like a clock and it's got the 45 minutes, that's okay. We'll take that, but everything else, it's just got to be the text required by the rule, the activation time, and the universal symbol. That is what makes a generic label. So this pop top over here, that's generic. So even though it has text that's going horizontally and some of it's going vertically, that's okay. We don't care about that. It's really what's printed on it. It's just the language from the rule on a plain package. This particular type of package, like this pop top, it does not need OLCC approval. You do not have to send this to me. You do not have to pay for this. If you want to email it to me and make sure that you've got all the right information on it, that's totally fine. But if you submit this and you pay for this, we will go ahead and review it, but you're not going to get your money back for it. So don't submit a generic label. If you have a question about whether or not your label is generic, you can email it to me. Call me. Usually email's better, but I'm really happy to talk to anybody about these particular issues. So the reason why this is generic is because it contains no logos, no pictures, and no graphics. Here's my example. Would this be considered a generic label? The answer is no. This is not a generic label. It's got the stars on it. It's got a logo. Even though it looks pretty plain on the back, still not a generic label. All right, kind of switching to a different topic, but another question that I get from a lot of people is about what is the UID number versus what is the test batch number. Both of these things are required to go on your label. You have to have both of them. So the UID number is the metric tag number. Before, the number that you put on your label was either the process lot number or the harvest lot number. So now that is encompassed by the UID number. So no harvest lot number, no process lot number. That was before. Those are the tracking numbers from before. This is the tracking number now. We want the metric tag number. This is an example of where you will find that number in metric. The UID number that you will use is generally the UID number that the product has at the time it's being packaged or labeled. So you don't have to do the one that's getting sent to the retail store, the very last one. That would be pretty burdensome. You can do the one, if you have like an edible, whatever UID it has at the time that you're putting it inside of the package and labeling it. It's a lot more convenient for you guys. Separately, the test batch number is the number created by the lab at the time of testing. This does not reside or exist inside of metric. This number comes from the labs. So this is the test number that comes from the labs. And it should be available on the lab test report. So if you look at the example on the right-hand side of the screen, but both the UID number and the test batch number are on that label, and they are both required. So make sure that they are both on there. What is really helpful is when you're putting the test batch number on there, to put it with the other lab information. So put your lab name, the date it was tested, and the test batch number together. That way we actually know what that number is. Sometimes people put free-floating numbers on their labels, and I'm not quite sure what they are. It is a lot more helpful. It's a lot more useful if you put them together. Same thing with the UID number. You can either just label it, it's the UID, or you can put it somewhere with the name, the producer, the processor name, and the license number. Similarly, the test batch number in this example is 24 digits. It might not be 24 digits. I just put that 24 digits on there. It will probably be smaller. The one thing that's kind of confusing about talking about packaging and labeling is that we call this, when you're putting your product into a container to sell to a consumer, we call that a package. When you're putting something in metric, we call that a package. So I just want to make it clear that that is not what we're talking about. We are not talking about metric packages here. We are talking about packages that will go to a consumer. So the packaging and labeling rules are for products that are for ultimate sale to a consumer. So these are individually, weighed out grams of flour or, cookies or topicals. They're the packages that will actually leave with the consumer outside of the store. So if you are transferring product from a producer to a retail store in a bulk amount, that does not follow the packaging and labeling rules. That is outside of it. There are transportation rules that you have to follow, but they do not, those packages, those bulk transfers, do not have to have all of the requirements set out by the labeling rules. So you don't have to have the universal symbol on the outside. You don't have to have the net weight on the outside in the same format that you'd have to have in here. You'll have to follow the information that's required in the transport rule. You'll have to have a transport manifest, and you'll have to have the UID number on the bulk transfer, but not all of the warnings and all the other stuff that's in the packaging and labeling rules. One thing to think about is even if you're completely following the rules, the transportation rules, and you're putting all this information on it, if you're a producer and you're sending bulk flour to a retailer, please consider adding the harvest date to the label that goes to the retailer. And the reason being is they can't see that information in metric, and they're going to need that. So you can put it on there and be really helpful, or you can receive a call from them because they're going to ask you. So it's just something to go ahead and think about to put that on the label beforehand. So things that have changed. We've had small container rules for a while now, but there were some issues that people had with getting the required information on a small container. So the OHA, they revised their rules, and they added a little bit more to make it helpful, so you could get more information on a small container. So first of all, I just want to clarify to make sure that we're all on the same page. A small container, the reason why we have this rule is there are some containers that are too small to fit all of the information from the rules, right? So if you have a really small container, you can follow this rule and put certain information directly on the small container and then have the rest of the information somewhere else. So if you have, for example, you know, like a tiny tincture bottle. If you have the tiny tincture bottle, there are certain information. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Ah. So if you have this bottle, it's probably not going to fit a full label. So what has to go on this small bottle is this information. So you'll have to have a principal display panel. So you'll have to have the universal symbol, the net weight, and the product identity. Product identity is just the common name of whatever is getting sold inside this container. You'll have to have the licensee that produced this product, so the processor licensee name and their licensee number, the UID number, the concentration of THC and CBD, and all of the required warnings. It's a lot of information that still has to fit on here. Thank you very much. The first 4, they can be in 6-point font. So that was one of the changes. You can now put those things in 6-point font. You got to put the required warning in 8-point font. And that is probably the largest portion of what's required, but it's still got to be in 8-point font. But an additional thing that you can do is before, the only thing that you could do to have all of this information on there was to use a flag label. So flag labels are still okay. So what I mean by a flag label is, actually, if you don't mind if I use that bottle again. So a flag label would be, this is your label. It's too small to fit on this. You wrap it around, and it's got, you know, a side coming off of it like a flag. So that's what a flag label is. You can have all the extra information hanging off the side. A lot of people, it's not the most pretty thing in the world, but it helps to get all the information on there. But now what you can do is you can have a peelback label. You can use a peelback label. You can use an accordion label, but you still have to have the information on the outside or the information from the first slide. So you still have to have these 5 things on the outside of the label. So you still have to be able to see them. Everything else that's required by rule can either go on the inside of the accordion label of the peelback label. It can go on a leaflet or a hang tag, so something that's included with the small container, or you can use an outer container. So the example up here, so you've got the small bottle, which has the label information on it. You can either have a hang tag that has the rest of the information, so there's your hang tag, or you can put that small container in an outer container. But the outer container has to have all of the information for the rule because you can't see the small container inside of the bag. So you wouldn't be able to see the net weight or the universal symbol or even what the product was. So you need to make sure that the outer container has the full label. But you don't have to do both. You don't have to have the leaflet and the outer container. One or the other is fine. The Oregon Health Authority also now requires that all cartridges have to have the universal symbol on it. So we are talking about the actual cartridge. The actual cartridge now has to have the universal symbol on it in the size required by the rule, which is 0.48 inches wide by 0.35 inches tall. And this is effective January 1st, 2017. I've had a couple people call me and say, there is no way that that universal symbol is going to fit on my cartridge. And I actually went into my office and I cut out a little bunch of little universal symbols and I stuck them on there. So I know it works. I know it works. One of the other changes was to strain names. So the rule changed that words that refer to products that are commonly associated with minors or marketed by minors are prohibited. So this includes some strain names that are pretty commonly used. So anything that refers to cartoon characters or toys or games is no longer allowed on a label that is leaving the store. If you want to use this inside of the store to market and let consumers know what they are buying, that is fine. Once it leaves the store, it cannot leave the store on a label. Please do not put these on a label. So right now, the list of prohibited strain names is at the bottom here. And the reason why this little guy over here is on the right, I had more calls about this. People would ask me so many times, not about any of the prohibited strain names, but they would ask me, what is wrong with Grape Ape? What is Grape Ape about? It's actually a cartoon character. He's over there. That is the great Grape Ape. He was a Tom and Jerry. So that is why he is up there. Well, I guess one more thing I should say about the prohibited strain names is there are things that are going to come up that are going to be new or that are currently used that we don't know about that are toys or games or things like that. It would be probably in your best interest not to use them. So you can use any kind of abbreviation. For example, a lot of people use for Girl Scout cookies, GSC. So someone emailed me the other day about creamsicle. That one I would probably not use because it is a popsicle that is marketed exclusively to children. So I just would stay away from anything like that. If you walk through a toy store and you see the name on any product that's sold inside of that toy store, I wouldn't use it. If it's in a children's book, I wouldn't use it. Even though it's not on the prohibited list right now, the chances that it will be are pretty high. So I just would avoid it. So resealable or single use. This was a change that occurred quite a while ago. I'm sure everyone's aware. Certain product types require certain types of packaging. So it's the type of product that determines what kind of package you have to use. So if you have an extract or a concentrate, it's got to go in a resealable, continually child-resistant package when it leaves the store. So it can either be directly packaged in that package, or it can go in an exit bag that satisfies that requirement before it leaves the store. So you can either package your product directly into an approved resealable, continually child-resistant package, or it can be put into an exit bag. You don't have to do both. So if it's an extract or a concentrate, it's got to go in a resealable, continually child-resistant. Also, if it's an cannabinoid product, which would be an edible, a topical, or a tincture, if it has more than 15 milligrams of THC, it's also got to go resealable, continually child-resistant. So all those products, they either have to go directly in a package, or they have to leave in an exit package that's resealable, continually child-resistant. If you're selling flour, any amount of flour, or a cannabinoid product, so an edible, a topical, or a tincture that has 15 milligrams of THC or less, then it can go in a single-use child-resistant package. These also have to be approved by the OLCC. They also have to be tested by a third-party lab, and they also have to be determined to be child-resistant under the federal guidelines. So all these packages have to be tested. They all have to be approved by the OLCC, but what we're talking about is just the product type. If it's a certain type of product, it can go in a single use, but if it's one of these other types of product, it has to go in a resealable, continually child-resistant package. There's a lot of confusion about concentration limits versus purchase limits. So these are two separate categories I want to talk about. So when you think about concentration limits, this is the amount of THC in each container. This is what we're talking. We're talking about the THC in a container. So there are tables established by the Oregon Health Authority that determine how much you can have, how much THC you can have per serving, and how much you can have in a container based on the product type. So for example, these chocolates, each square would be limited to 5 milligrams, and the entire container could only have 50 or less. So that's the concentration limit that we're talking about. This is the what's in the product that goes in the bag. This is different than the purchase limit. The purchase limit is what a consumer can buy when they come into a retail store. This is what they can buy each day. So when a consumer comes in, they can buy 16 ounces of solid cannabinoid products or 72 ounces of liquid cannabinoid products. They can buy 1 ounce of usable marijuana if they're a recreational consumer, 24 ounces if they're a patient or caregiver, 5 grams of concentrates and extracts, 4 plants, and 10 seeds. You could buy all of this at one time if you're a consumer on one day. So you could buy 16 ounces of cookies and 72 ounces of some beverage, 1 ounce of flour, 5 grams of concentrates, 4 plants, and 10 seeds, and walk out of that store. But you cannot buy more than 1 ounce of flour. So if you're only going in and you want to buy 2 ounces of flour and you're a recreational consumer, can't. One ounce. So that's the difference. There are purchase limits for each product type. The pre-approval process. When it was up and it was new for the first time and people were having a lot of trouble with it, I would refund applications if somebody made a mistake, if they accidentally submitted it twice or 3 times or 4 times, but we're not going to do that anymore. So March 1st, we're not going to do any more refunds, no more refunds. If you submit it, you better be sure about it before you submit it. Make sure you don't do it too many times. Another thing that was happening was if you submitted a label application and there was problems with it and I wrote you back a note and I said, you're missing these 5 things, and then you'd resubmit it and you'd only do 2 of them, and then I'd write you back and I'd say, well, you're still missing these 3 things, and then you'd send me back and it'd fix 1 of them, and then I'd write you back and say, you're still missing these 2 things, and you write me back. And anyway, you only get 2 chances. 2 chances, denied, you gotta start over. So you submit it, I say, you're missing these 5 things, you submit it back and it doesn't have those 5 things, denied. So that's a change. So make sure that you pay attention, read it very closely. I will put points. I'll say, number 1, you don't have the net weight. Number 2, you don't have the universal symbol. Number 3, I will actually list them out. Please read all of it. Make sure it's in there. Or email it to me beforehand. If you email it to me and I say, you're missing these 10 things, we can talk about it. I'm totally cool with that. That's fine. But within the system, you get 2 chances. So this is actually what the rule states, and I've been allowing people 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chances. I'm not going to do that anymore. Also, I just wanted to point this out. So if you are a wholesaler or a retailer and you receive an item that is not packaged and labeled correctly, you are supposed to tell us. You're supposed to tell us, and you're supposed to send it back to whoever gave it to you. It is a violation to sell an item that is not packaged or labeled correctly. So I know that there are people out there who are not labeling their products correctly and they are selling them. I know you're out there. Stop doing it. It's very important, and with the whole compliance, sorry, I'll answer one question in a second, but just with all of the compliance stuff that's going on, we've really got to make sure that the rules are getting followed. I know that there are people out there who are selling products without warnings. They're selling it without testing information, and we really got to make sure that we are all following the rules and doing the best of our ability to make sure that the product's safe, that we're all doing the right thing. So please, please, please get your labels approved and make sure that all of the right information is going out on the labels.